Oh man, this is quite the issue right here, folks. I'm very much looking forward to talking about this one, so welcome to another Energon Universe discussion video. This time, we're looking at the Energon Universe 2024 special. This is a one-shot first made available on May 4th for free comic book day in local brick-and-mortar shops with this killer cover featuring Megatron by Ryan Ottley, artist from Invincible. This one-shot contains 3 short stories from the 3 existing pillars of the Energon Universe: Transformers, Void Rivals, and G.I. Joe. It was clear that Megatron would play a significant part in the Transformers segment of this one-shot based on the covers and the preview released a while back, but I wasn't expecting to get as much as we did here. This portion of the book is essentially a spotlight on Megatron, who hasn't gotten much in the Energon Universe so far. The story begins with a flashback to the Decepticon attack on the Ark prior to the crash landing on Earth, with Megatron single-handedly fighting off a group of Autobots, and Brawn once more finding himself on the business end of Megatron's fusion cannon. Poor guy. Seems doomed to have his spark snuffed by Megatron across the multiverse. This story fills in a lot of blanks in regards to some specific details we hadn't yet been shown in the main Transformers series, though it's mostly confirming some things that many of us suspected, like Optimus using his Energon axe to lop off Megatron's fusion cannon arm. I feel like I maybe should have started a tally for how many arms get forcibly removed in this universe instead of a body count. And the other thing that we all saw coming was Starscream blasting Megatron out of the Ark, thus separating him from the rest of the Decepticons. A neat touch, though, comes in the form of the damage that was done to Megatron's eye that we saw in Cobra Commander number 1. Well, we find out that was due to Starscream's attack in this issue. That's pretty cool. This segment of the one-shot is written by Daniel Warren Johnson, and he uses the story to flesh out and expand on a battle that had only been briefly alluded to throughout the ongoing series, as well as offering us a taste of what Megatron will be like in the Energon Universe. And yeah, if this is any indication of things to come, then I think there's a pretty good chance Johnson will do for Megatron what he's been doing for Optimus Prime. In other words, completely nail the voice and characterization of the G1 cartoon continuity iteration of the character. More specifically, this Megatron seems to hit the notes of what I loved about the character from the '86 animated movie, where he came across as more of a cunning, deadly, and proud warrior than the sometimes goofy arch-villain in the G1 animated series. He's a vicious powerhouse here, and that comes across at the start, but also in the next part of the story, which flashes forward to Megatron escaping his confinement from cobra-la, something I did not see happening in this one-shot of all places. As he escapes, the Decepticon leader fatally smashes one cobra-la scientist underfoot while wounding another. Interestingly enough, Megatron lets the other scientist live after the humanoid directs him to his missing left arm. It's still early days and all, but that already seems to stand in stark contrast to Starscream, who, if you remember, killed humans just for the fun of it. Megatron seems more measured here, perhaps less cruel and sadistic than Starscream, but I suppose we'll see. Another interesting thing is how easily Megatron reattaches his left arm. Seems weird, right? Unless I'm mistaken, I don't think this is something that most Cybertronians are able to do in this continuity. So what's going on here? Is this some kind of dark energon thing, or a result of Cobra Commander's experiments, or something else that makes Megatron unique? None of the above? I don't know. Anyway, we get a cool sequence that in some ways mirrors the start of the story, with Megatron versus multiple enemies, though this fight is probably skewed a little more in Cobra-La's favor, as Megatron is missing an arm and an eye. Globulus himself enters the fray. We get to see Megatron's energy mace, and the Decepticon leader gives an approximation of his "I belong to nobody" quote from the animated movie before Globulus removes his remaining eye. Ouch. Megatron then launches himself out of Cobra-La and to the snowy surface of the Earth, finally unleashed upon the planet, though missing an arm and both of his eyes, so it's questionable how doomed humanity is just yet. You would think that Megatron would want to take a moment to, I don't know, take stock, maybe offer a parting quip to Globulus, but no. Instead, he vows revenge against Starscream. A lot of people gunning for that guy. But moving right along, the Void Rivals story, written by Robert Kirkman and illustrated by Lorenzo de Felici, primarily follows Skuxoid as he arrives at a spaceport and reconnects with another obscure G1 cartoon character named Slizardo. The twist here is that Slizardo is secretly working for Hot Rod, who, in characteristic fashion, impatiently blows his cover to get information from Skuxoid directly. Hot Rod seems to be trying to find an old ally who is pursuing a mysterious ancient legend in order to save Cybertron. As an aside, and maybe this is a stretch, but do you think this line with Hot Rod asking Skuxoid if he's going to stand in the Autobots' way is a nod to the Kick-Axe/Spectre General cover of John Farnham's Nothing's Gonna Stand in Our Way, the song used in the 86 animated movie when Hot Rod fights the Robo-Squid? In any case, maybe that old buddy chasing the legend is Springer, as we know he's going to show up on the Sacred Ring in Void Rivals number 9, but it could be another Autobot that we haven't been introduced to yet. Regardless, with Skuxoid putting Hot Rod on the trail of Zertonia, it seems likely that the two Autobots will cross paths before long. Oh, is this the start of more big-name Transformers characters having more of a substantial presence in Void Rivals? I wouldn't be disappointed if that's the case. Pretty happy to see Hot Rod here, rendered in De Felici's characteristically atmospheric style, and Lopes absolutely nailed the colors. In general, this is a nifty little segment as it deepens the mystery of how the Quintessons and Cybertronians are connected to the Sacred Ring. I think there's little room for doubt at this point that there is a connection. The implication here that an ancient Cybertronian legend is pointing towards Zertonia, that's pretty intriguing, right? But while there may be pre-existing connections of some sort here, there's also a hint of something more, something new, with a totally new, unidentified character spying on the exchange between Hot Rod, Skuxoid, and Slizardo, and reporting back to an unknown party. Is this guy connected to the cast we've already met, or are new players about to enter the game? It's a big universe out there after all. The plot thickens. Regardless, Void Rivals number 9 can't get here soon enough to hopefully start answering some of these questions. Closing out the Energon Universe special is a G.I. Joe story written by Tom Riley, serving as something of an epilogue to the Duke miniseries. I've said in the Duke videos that I was hopeful that we'd get more with Baroness, and that I was also hoping that the possibility of her joining G.I. Joe wasn't totally off the table. Along with that, I also said that I felt like the way Duke wrapped up was fine, but none too surprising. Well, this short little story addresses all of that stuff, showing Duke recruiting Baroness to G.I. Joe after rescuing her from some masked assailants, who turn out to be none other than Flint and Lady J, working under orders from Hawk to recruit Baroness. And that's the real kicker here. Throughout the action of the story, a conversation between Hawk and Duke plays out, where the Colonel tries to convince Duke not to recruit Baroness. Seems like Hawk was trying to talk Duke out of it because he wanted to recruit her for the second team he's putting together, a second team that he's kept secret from his star soldier. So that means that there are two top secret units, with one being more secret than the other. Ooh, this is a great twist that immediately makes the ending of Duke much, much more interesting to me. And it shows that, like Duke, the readers don't have the full picture yet. And speaking of pictures, there's a sequence that shows how plugged in Hawk is to current events of the Energon Universe, showing where we've been and where we're going, with some files drawing attention to Scarlet, Destro, the Crimson Twins, and the Mass device, pointing towards the future miniseries. There's also a folder with an Autobot logo on it, and I'm very curious what's in that one. But yeah, there's more going on with the formation of G.I. Joe than I initially thought after reading Duke. There's no doubt now that Baroness is going to be a Joe, at least until, the inevitable betrayal. So I'm glad to see Skybound commit to that, and they committed hard by giving her a new G.I. Joe logo inspired outfit and having her be the first character in the continuity to say the catchphrase, "Yo Joe," which, I don't know, seems like it might have had more of an impact if we had a moment where we see the characters officially land on the G.I. Joe moniker, but Maybe it happened off panel. Maybe Skybound realizes we all know what the unit is going to be called, and they just decided to skip the superfluous stuff. I don't know. Doesn't really matter too much. I have to say, though, this new outfit they gave Baroness, yeah, it's a bit much. Not a big fan, but maybe it'll grow on me. Anyway, while the writing team for this issue was composed of authors we're already familiar with, we got a couple of new additions providing art here. The aforementioned Ryan Ottley on the Transformers story and Jason Howard on the G.I. Joe segment, and I dig the work each artist turned in here. Howard is operating in a cartoony style that's similar enough to what we've seen in Duke and Cobra Commander that it doesn't feel at odds with what came before, but it's still distinct in execution. He's a good fit, in other words. I wasn't familiar with Howard's work prior to reading this issue, but he brings quite a bit to the table. Solid layouts, blisteringly dynamic action, and an eye for compelling shot composition. I may not love the new outfit for Baroness, but I do think this is a very strong page, and it's given an extra punch thanks to Spicer's dramatic color work. And on the Transformers side of things, Ottley is one of those artists that seems fully capable of drawing both Cybertronians and humanoid characters extremely well, a balance you don't always get in Transformers comics, unfortunately. Usually one ends up being stronger than the other. I know the cartoon aesthetic is just not going to do it for some people, but I personally don't have a problem with it, and I have to give credit to Ottley for his work here, as I find that the spin he puts on that cartoon aesthetic to be a satisfying blend of the clean Sunbow style and a more detailed approach. On the Cybertronians, a lot of the usually smooth surfaces are much more weathered, presumably from the battle at hand, and when you start getting into the movable joints of the characters or areas with more extensive battle damage, you start seeing more intricate technological touches, like wires, pistons, and other greebles. Just helps make things look a little more interesting, I think. I wouldn't mind seeing more from both Ottley and Howard for the Energon Universe in the future, but at the same time, I'm liking the teams we have on deck for the foreseeable future, but I'm not opposed to seeing them appear again, maybe later on down the line. At the end of the day, this was just a fun read. If the goal of this one-shot was to build hype for year 2 of the Energon Universe, then Skybound succeeded tremendously. Judging by the quality of what we've seen so far, year 2 is going to be even better than the already excellent first year of the Energon Universe, and I'm so ready. I was already into what Skybound was doing before, but after reading this 2024 special, they somehow got me even more. My excitement and my interest have been considerably ratcheted up. There's a few reasons for that, I think. Each story in this book contains surprises and developments that will have major effects on their respective series, which is very cool, but this one shot also has me stoked at the prospect of these books talking to each other more. Having these 3 different threads all thrown together into one book was awesome. I found it immensely satisfying seeing the different corners of this universe crammed together into one package. So I'm pretty hyped for eventual crossovers where these stories will presumably weave together even more. The future is looking bright for this continuity. But that's all from me on this one. What are your thoughts on this special one-shot issue? I'd be curious to know if there are some of you out there just following one or 2 of the different titles, and if so, did this get you interested in the other titles or not? Let me know in the comments. Hit the thumbs up button if you liked the video, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. I'm covering the entire Energon universe, so stick around. And lastly, thank you for watching this. It's always appreciated. Hope you have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.